Welcome to the Lake Superior Podcast. I'm Walt Lindelof.
And I'm Frida Wara. We are made stronger by story, and there's no better source than the continent's largest body of fresh water, Lake Superior.
So join us as we highlight the 5 national parks that ring this greatest of the Great Lakes, meet the people, tour the places, and learn about the projects that make these parks and body of water so remarkable.
This podcast made possible with the support of the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation and Media Brew Communications.
Welcome to the Lake Superior Podcast. I'm Walt Lindelof.
And I'm Frida Wara. And Walt, you know Lake Superior is the largest lake in the world by surface area. Mm-hmm. We've got 31,700 square miles. But did you also know, Walt, that it's the oldest around Lake Superior, is the oldest and largest lava flow on Earth? And it's right in your homeland, sir. I
have an idea. This is the Keweenaw, right?
Oh, yeah. And the volcanic activity produced the only place on Earth where you can find 97% pure native copper.
And today we're going to get to learn more about it because we're going to be talking with Wyndeth Davis, who is Superintendent of the Keweenaw National Historical Park. It's one of our 5 national parks on Lake Superior. And in sake of not getting too formal, Wyndeth, we'll just introduce you as everyone knows you. Welcome, Wendy, to the program. Good to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You know, we've been talking about the Keweenaw National Historical Park here as we're getting ready to record and talk about this. And tell us a little bit about it. What's the history about it, and where are you located?
The park itself is on, I like to say, it's on the Upper Peninsula of the Upper Peninsula. If you can look around anywhere around you and see a map of the United States, you can probably see the Keweenaw Peninsula without even having to get up and walk across the room. It's a little finger of land that sticks up from Michigan into Lake Superior. And it's a magical place.
Yeah, I'm actually fairly familiar with it because I am born and raised in that area in Chassell, just south of Houghton, which is in the Keweenaw Peninsula. And it has a unique history, to say the least, geologically and in the industry of America. But I understand you've said it's not an easy way or not the easy way to be a national park. What do you mean by that?
When the park was established in 1992, it was established as a different kind of park than maybe people think about when they think about national parks like the Grand Canyon or Glacier. This national park was established to be a partnership park, and the way that Senator Carl Levin, who played a huge part in the establishment of the park, described it was a park that's done by people at the grassroots level. So it's similar in a sense to other parks, to local parks, because private properties and park properties are all intertwined. The federal government doesn't just own a big block of land, and that's the park. The public property and the private property are kind of inextricable. So it's hard to say, well, the park is right over there, because the park is really inside all of us. There's an advisory commission that was established at the same time as the park was, and that commission helps keep us grounded to the history in this area and helps connect the federal part of the park to 21 heritage sites, which are scattered all along the peninsula, from the very tip of the peninsula down beyond Ontonagon. So we're tied together by that commission, but there are people who own stores and houses and live in the park, and they're really not part of the park literally, but they're not owned by the park either.
It covers 4 counties, Wendy? So you're the Keweenaw, Houghton, Baraga, and Ontonagon?
Yes.
Yeah.
The heritage sites cover parts of 4 counties. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So managing that, when I think about your staff and managing It's very different than what we think of in a national park.
It really is because managing is a group effort instead of, one effort. And we all have to work together in order to be successful in telling the story of the copper country. So it's very different than most other national parks.
We're talking with Wyndeth Davis, who is superintendent at the Keweenaw National Historical Park in the Copper Country. I'm familiar with this area because I'm born and raised up there, but for someone that is a first-time visitor, maybe they've never been there before, what do you tell them?
I tell them to see as much as they can see. To sit down and look at a map and get an understanding of what there is to see. Check the website of the park and the advisory commission to find out where all these heritage sites are, because they're not all in one place, but each one of them has a piece of the story to tell. And as people move from one end of the peninsula to the other, whether they're, hunting or looking at fall colors or exploring waterfalls, woven in amongst all of that are these places that tell Michigan's history and tell American history. So I guess I just tell people to look at those sites and find one that matches their interest and go there, and then find one that they really don't think they'd be interested in and go there too.
I like that. That's good. That's good.
Something.
In the whole scope of what this region meant basically to the world.
Yes. I think that's sometimes what we miss locally because we're so caught up in the local impact of the story that we forget that it is copper that brought most of this country out of the age of lanterns to the age of light bulbs. So the wiring that connected people to electricity, most of it came from the copper in the Keweenaw. Copper is kind of a connecting thread that flows through the stories of people and places that you would not even expect if you were standing here on the ground.
We're talking with Wyndeth Davis, who is superintendent at the Keweenaw National Historical Park on our podcast today. This is, so far as you have described it, an unique park and unique location. How did you end up there?
Well, I'm not a local, so I stand out up here. I grew up in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. Both sides of my family had a very strong connection to family history, and my father was a costume designer and a director and college professor, so we spent a lot of time in the theater, learning about the past, tying the past to the present, watching people create things that connected to other people, either artistically or emotionally or intellectually. So that fascination with the past led me to become an archaeologist. And I became an archaeologist after I got my master's degree up in Alaska with the National Park Service and met my first copper mine, the Kennecott mine out in Wrangell, St. Elias. Mm-hmm. But I moved from archaeology into education and interpretation and developed a lot of distance learning programs for the Alaska region with PBS and South Carolina Educational Television that brought kids to those parks, even if they lived at the other end of the country. And it doesn't seem like very much now. At the time, it was a big deal because we really didn't do that a lot. In fact, I was also on the first web team for the Park Service, and at that time there were some superintendents in Alaska who said, this park is never going to have a website. And we can kind of laugh at that now, but the thinking at the time was, no one understood at the time what the World Wide Web really was or where it was going. And so it was a little bit intimidating. And the parks are based on being in the actual place where you can see the actual thing. And I think the feeling was that if we let people see it without coming, without being in the place, that maybe they wouldn't come. that if they could see these amazing places through their computer screen, that they would never come. Now we know, right, that people see it on the screen and then they say, oh, wow, I've got to go stand underneath that amazing sequoia tree and see how tall it really is compared next to me. Or, there's the largest steam hoist in the world there at the Quincy Mine on the Keweenaw Peninsula. How big is that really? I want to go see that. So we know it didn't work that way. But I moved from there to the Washington office and was the education coordinator for the National Park Service and an interpretive planner for the National Park Service out of our Harpers Ferry Design Center. It's kind of like the design brain for the Park Service, and was helping lots of parks plan their visitor experience. And a call came in to come up to the Keweenaw and work with the heritage sites to help them develop interpretive plans. And that's how I met this place and absolutely fell in love.
Wyndeth Davis with us today, the superintendent of the Keweenaw National Historical Park. And Frida and I were talking just a little bit before we went on that basically this is pioneering electronic field trips. These are the kinds of things that we're kind of used to now. You were doing that in Alaska, and this is a perfect tool for the era that we're in right now where we can't go to places. How are you using that idea, maybe that technology today with the Keweenaw National Historical Park?
One of the cool things we're doing today is we're taking another step out onto the frontier of digital learning with the park, and we're looking at games. The game we've been working with is Minecraft, which allows players to build things with little cubes, kind of like Legos, only it's all electronic. It's all in the computer. And we've got a great team of people who are actually going through researching historic structures in Calumet and building those buildings in this digital world so that you can go and explore them electronically. That's kind of the very edge, we're pushing now, because electronic field trips have sort of become common now.
Yeah, they're the norm.
Fascinating. And then, of course, tying them to the folks that probably were going and building way back, looking at what the whole beginning of the copper country and the industrialization and all the movement that was happening. So these kids really get a chance, because I'm just making an assumption, maybe that's not right, that they would be a younger visitor, but hallelujah that we can attract more youth to our national parks.
How many young people do we on a regular basis get to, attach to original drawings of these buildings so they can, explore those and learn more about them, and, just all of the archival resources that these kids are using in order to be able to create these things is amazing.
Wyndeth, one of the things that I'm hearing here is a lot of history, a lot of things that are focused on, looking back and interpreting it and having it available as a resource for people in the modern era here. But are there projects maybe that you have that are happening either over the winter months or things that may be coming even toward the summer months that you can talk about? I know everything's kind of fluid these days and, in terms of events and whatnot, but are there any particular things that you're doing at the park right now that are embracing the history, but you're building something for the future?
Yeah, there are. And one of the biggest of those projects that we're working together on now is a curatorial storage facility that will hold the items that tell the story of not only Keweenaw National Historical Park, but also of Isle Royal and Pictured Rock. This facility is going into a huge warehouse that was warehouse number one of the Calumet and Hecla Mining Company right in Calumet. And we're in the process of developing a design for that building that will allow us to maintain the building and even provide some exhibits inside about how the building was used and what it was like to work for the company. and also provide a state-of-the-art facility for the preservation of those resources that are right now, in need of a place to live.
Wendy, have you had to have some specialized help with that? Some architects that are historically, specific, I guess, to the property?
Absolutely. Weirdly enough, because of the way the park is set up to operate, we provide technical assistance to all of the 21 heritage sites. So that means if they need assistance with historical architecture or landscape architecture or curatorial museum collection services or history or archives, we have to have professionals on the park staff who can deal with that and help them achieve their goal of telling their part of the story. So we do have kind of a weird staff for a national park, made up of these highly skilled professionals. So they help, but we also benefit from the Park Service experience over its many years of existence in terms of building these curatorial facilities and what it takes and what not to do.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful too.
And I'm sure that you're also kind of under the auspices of being an historical site. You have to follow, you can't come in and put an ultra-modern space in. It has to follow sort of the aesthetic and the understanding of the way it was to maintain that feel, correct?
That's one thing I know when I visited your headquarters, I have so appreciated how closely and just paying, tight attention to the historical reverence for those buildings. They're amazing.
It really is amazing. Yeah, we don't have the complete freedom to just do what we want with these buildings. Each of them has been surveyed really carefully, and the character defining aspects of those buildings, the things that make them important historically, have all been documented. And so when we do work in a building, we need to be careful that we either are not having an impact on any of those important features of the building, or that we're doing it in a way that's reversible. So, But the headquarters building is really amazing. It's for those who haven't seen it, it's a combination of brick and stone on the outside that is just striking, even from a distance. And then the interior has been redone much in the way that it was when it was the headquarters of the Calumet and Hecla Mining Company. So there's not a time when I walk into my office that I'm not struck by the fact that this was once the office of the president of the company, and I need to treat it with respect.
Can folks log onto your website to see at least what you can give them updates on? And what is that website?
The website is the best place to look. It is NPS, as in National Park Service, .gov, G-O-V, and then a / and Kiwi, K-E-W-E.
So thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it, Wendy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have an opportunity to lift up the work that the whole community of Keweenaw National Historical Park is undertaking.
Well, it's Wyndeth Davis, Wendy Davis, of course, superintendent at the Keweenaw National Historical Park, Frida. And, that's the stories there, of course. I have an affinity for them because they're from where I am from. I know a lot of these stories and a lot of these places. But, there is something to be said of going to a place like this where it is more than just, a green space. This is actual concrete and sandstone buildings you can touch, and it can get into your head, into your consciousness.
Everything from the Honka farmstead all the way to the Italian Hall. Mm-hmm. There are so many places there. And another thing that they're working on is to have some trails, because it's a great place just to go, whether you're going to be mountain biking, Copper Harbor, that quaint little drinking town with a biking problem. I love that. Or just, visiting around, and you can still go underground. How wonderful to take the family this year on an underground Quincy Mine tour and just get an inkling of what it was like to forge that copper. And I love how Wendy said, from Lanterns to light bulbs. That's what the Keweenaw was for our country and for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a great chat with Wendy. And of course, we encourage you to find out more about the Keweenaw National Historical Park and all the national parks around Lake Superior. It's going to do it for us this time around here on the podcast. I'm Walt Lindela.
Frida Wara.
And we will see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
The National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation, NPLSF, is the only official nonprofit 501c3 fundraising partner of the National Park Service for all 5 U.S. national park sites on Lake Superior.
To learn more about NPLSF projects and programs, you can visit the website at nplsf.org or friend them on Facebook.
I'm Frida Wara.
And I'm Walt Lindela. Thanks for listening to the Lake Superior Podcast.
This podcast made possible with the support of the National Parks of Lake Superior Foundation and Media Brew Communications.